Patriarchusთან და გიორგის საკაზეთთან ერთად მოგესალმებით ყველას.
გაიცანი შენი პირადი ფარმაცევტი.
გამარჯობა, მე ვარ ნათია და მზად ვარ პერსონალურად ვიზრუნო თქვენს ჯანმრთელობაზე.
პირადი ფარმაცევტის დახმარებით რიგის გარეშე მიიღებ პერსონალურ კონსულტაციას როგორც ადგილზე, ასევე სახლიდან გაუსვლელად. მთავარია დაურეკო ან მიწერო. ნებისმიერ დროს, ნებისმიერი ადგილიდან და განსაზღვრულ დროს მიიღო შენთვის საჭირო მედიკამენტები და თავის მოვლის საშუალებები სწრაფად, მარტივად და უფასოდ. ავერსის პირადი ფარმაცევტი, თქვენი ჯანმრთელობისთვის.
ორბი ჯგუფი გთავაზობთ შემოსავლიანი აპარტამენტების მრავალფეროვან არჩევას ბათუმსა და თბილისში 19500-დან.
Comfort by ორბი, ბათუმის ულამაზეს გმირთა ხეივანში. აპარტამენტები მხოლოდ 19500-დან.
Avenue by ორბი, ბათუმის ულამაზეს გმირთა ხეივანში 39500-დან.
ორბი City, ბათუმში, ზღვიდან მხოლოდ 50 მეტრში, 53500-დან.
ორბი კონტინენტალი, პრემიუმ კლასის აპარტამენტები ბათუმში 75000-დან.
Central Park Towers-ი, Radisson Blu სასტუმრო ნომერი თბილისში 150000-დან.
მეტი ინფორმაციისთვის დაგვიკავშირდით
555 31 0000.
ორბი.g.
დაკავდით სასურველი აქტივობებით. მიიღეთ გამაჯანსაღებელი პროცედურები და ისარგებლეთ ინდური ალტერნატიული მედიცინით. ჩვენთან გელოდებათ კომფორტი, რომელიც დაიმსახურეთ.
ტრანსპორტერი გარდენა ჰუსკوارნას ოფიციალური დისტრიბუტორი საქართველოში.
გადაცემის წარმომადგენია ალიანს ჯგუფი. როგორ ვითარდება ქვეყნის ეკონომიკის ერთ-ერთი მთავარი სექტორი? რა ახდენს გავლენას ფაცებსა და მოთხოვნაზე? რამდენად იცავენ უსაფრთხოების სტანდარტებს სამშენებლო და დეველოპერული კომპანიები და რას უნდა მიაქციოთ ყურადღება უძრავ ქონებაში ინვესტირებამდე? ყოველ სამშაბათს 5-ის 5 წუთზე BMG TV-ს პირდაპირ ეთერში მოგიყვებით ყველაფერს, რაც უძრავი ქონების ბაზარზე აქტუალურია. უძრავი ქონების პროსპექტი თათია ჩაფიჩაძესთან და გუგა კობახიძესთან ერთად. გადაცემის წარმომადგენია ალიანს ჯგუფი. The Checkpoints is presented by pharmaceutical company GM Pharma. Last week, several announcements were made regarding the National Bank of Georgia. After extensive and in-depth discussions, Mikhail Qavelashvili appointed Natia Turnava as president of the National Bank of Georgia, following her nomination by the bank's board. The board unanimously decided to nominate Natia Turnava for the presidency during their meeting. The outcome is a result of sleepless nights of discussions and efforts by members of the Georgian Dream Party in parliament, leading to the approval of all 4 candidates for the National Bank's board by Mikhail Kobakhidze. It's unclear how much time and thought Mikhail Kobakhidze invested in selecting the board members, but Parliament's plenary session unanimously approved their candidacies without discussion. Prior to this, the Finance and Budget Committee of the same institution, Georgian Parliament, took just 1 hour and 5 minutes to hear all 4 members. Thus, there are no longer any vacant positions on the National Bank's board. In her capacity as a newly appointed president of the National Bank, Ms. Turnava will testify in the court case Ivanishvili versus Bachiashvili, where she will discuss the 21st century findings of the National Bank's Supervisory Service and confirm the requalification of an 8-year loan agreement in favor of the plaintiff, Bidzina Ivanishvili. The number of members in the Georgian parliament, meanwhile, has decreased to 101, a shocking development that occurred after the plenary session supported the early termination of mandates for deputies from 3 political unions. Member of the For Georgia Gakharia party, who secured 12 mandates, according to Central Election Commission results, have not requested mandate termination. As a result, the 10th convocation of the Georgian parliament will continue its work with 89 men and women. The Parliamentary Bureau of Georgian Dream supported the Foreign Relations Committee's appeal to recall members from Georgia's permanent delegation to the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. Despite the recall of members, the delegation is not dissolved. It remains, stated the ruling party. Later in the week, their leader received a call from the Council of Europe informing them that Secretary General Alain Berset is concerned about the Georgian government's change of position regarding amendments to the foreign influence law. It is noted that Kobakhidze informed Alain Berset that he no longer wishes to participate in the working group to amend the Russian law. Georgian Dream is tightening legislation. Administrative fines and detention periods are increasing to 60 days. Verbal insults towards state political officials and public servants are now defined as offenses. The term of criminal imprisonment for resistance, threats, and violence against police officers is increasing to 5 to 6 years, categorizing it as a serious crime in the specific case. In short, as the classics of the parliamentary majority genre say, these changes are implemented to prevent the fascist actions of pseudo-liberals. Unable to withstand the historic decisions of the Georgian parliament, Irakli Kobakhidze embarked on an official visit to Kazakhstan, where he held meetings with the country's president and prime minister. It is said that meetings took place in a businesslike and warm atmosphere. According to a report by the state treasury, 806 million Georgian lari were collected in the budget from VAT in January, which is 7 million lari less than in January 2024. This amount is not significant for the multi-billion revenue of the state budget. However, it is important to prevent a trend of declining revenues, which our fiscal, administrative, and ever just a second state services will strive to avoid. Last week, Levan Gobechia, head of the Revenue Service Debt Management Department, resigned. Gobechia announced this on social media. An 18-year epic has ended. Great victories lie ahead, accompanied by the flags of Georgia and the European Union. In response to BMG's question about the reason for leaving, Gobechia said he does not wish to comment. According to Geostat, in January 2025, the inflation rate in Georgia was 0.4% compared to the previous months, and the annual inflation rate was around 2%. Following MR's Group 6 billion investments, the Georgian government is announcing another major investment project. Exim Holding subsidiary Adjara Energy will invest $460 million in the energy sector. According to a government statement, the investment project includes the construction of 5 wind and 1 solar power plants, with a total installed capacity of approximately 360 megawatts. A meeting between tourism industry representatives and the Georgian government was marked by intense and emotional discussions. Some of the companies present pointed out problems in the sector, including concerns over a decline in tourist numbers. Meanwhile, the National Tourism Administration expressed optimism about 2025. This comes despite industry's concerns about various challenges, including reduced bookings due to the current political situation.
This is the Checkpoints. I'm Elena Kwanchilashvili, author and the host of the show, and the Checkpoints team is ready to sum up Business and Economics Week for you. The International Monetary Fund will not issue a press release regarding its visit to Georgia. This information was confirmed to BMG TV's program Analytics by the IMF resident office in Georgia. It appears that the IMF has nothing to say at this stage, despite multiple attempts by Analytics to secure an interview with either Alejandro Hajdenberg, the head of the visiting IMF mission, or Andrew Jewell, the IMF's permanent representative in Georgia. The interviews did not take place despite the IMF's efforts, both in its Tbilisi and Washington offices. Although the government agencies under the ruling Georgian Dream Party have been sending press releases with considerable frequency, these statements contained only general information rather than detailed insights. One thing is certain, and even these official releases reinforce this view: the future of the IMF program was not discussed during meetings with the Georgian side. From the outset, the IMF made it explicitly clear that the mission was not visiting to negotiate a program with the Georgian Dream government. It is notable that the IMF set this condition just days after a Reuters article reported that Georgia still wanted a program with the IMF. The article quoted Georgia's Deputy Finance Minister. Later, Minister of Economy Levan Davitashvili clarified that the Georgian Dream would have its own terms if the list of reforms required by the IMF did not fully align with the government's interests. They would continue without the program. Two reforms from the program approved in 2022 did not align with Georgian Dream's interests. One related to the independence of the National Bank of Georgia, and the other to the corporatization of state-owned enterprises. Due to the violation of these two key conditions, the IMF suspended its program with Georgia, and it remains frozen to this day. The program is set to expire in June 2025. USAID funding was not used for a real purpose, for some kind of charitable purposes. All of this was used in the countries, including Georgia specifically, to organize revolutions, bring unrest, and destabilize the country. GD Prime Minister Irakli Kobakhidze told journalists in Kazakhstan. According to Irakli Kobakhidze, today the US government is officially talking about what the Georgian government was talking about in the spring of 2023. What we were talking about in the spring of 2023, then last spring, is what the US government is officially talking about today. We are talking about the fact that USAID funding was not used for a real purpose, for some kind of charitable purposes. All of this was used in the countries, including Georgia specifically, to organize revolutions, bring unrest, destabilize the country, and so forth. Of course, all this requires additional investigation. We're glad that USAID funding has been suspended for 3 months. The main thing for us is that it remains like this. It would be very important for the USAID to never again try to disrupt the situation in our country, never again try, for example, to falsify the results of vote tabulation, as well as directly support revolutionary processes and so forth. We hope that the 3-month suspension mechanism will remain in force until the end, Kobakhidze stated. The ruling Georgian Dream Party announced a new batch of restrictive laws aimed at civil society and media. The laws, to be rubber-stamped over the next 2 months by the one-party parliament, will also toughen drugs and juvenile justice policies. Mamka Dinaradze, one of the GD's leaders, announced at a briefing on February the 5th. Among the most notable changes was his announcement of the planned adoption of a more restrictive law targeting civil society organizations and the repressive measures measures against the media. Like in the past, GD leadership claims that they are simply replicating the Western models. CSO law would be an exact copy of the U.S. Foreign Agents Registration Act, FARA, and media legislation would copy approaches and practices from Great Britain, Dinaradze claimed. Both the U.S. and the UK are, of course, common law countries with legal systems incompatible with that of Georgia and which place high value on legal precedent. The court system in Georgia, however, has proven subservient to the ruling party. Dinaradze said that all legal norms providing for mandatory participation of NGOs in the public decision-making process would be removed from all relevant laws and bylaws. The appointment of heads of public legal entities will be facilitated, as their appointment and dismissal will be at the discretion of ministers. In the public sector, the receiving of benefits from foreign sources will be restricted, Dinaradze stated, adding that without the consent of the head of the relevant entity, it will be prohibited for civil servants to receive any benefits from foreign sources, whether direct or indirect, salary supplements, financing of trainings, visits, and so forth. Dinaradze said, we will start work tomorrow and introduce a media law, which he claimed would be based on the British model and which would define media objectivity and journalistic ethics. Funding of the media from foreign sources will be limited, he said, except for funds from commercial advertising. Migration legislation will also be tightened, as announced by the GD. The greater the pressure, blackmail, and attempts to violate the independence of Georgia to create unrest and chaos in our country, the greater will be the reaction to all this, including the legal and political reaction. Will continue to prevent all this so that Georgia will never be subordinated to blackmail, that its institutions will be strong, and that nobody will try to interfere in Georgia's internal affairs, violate its independence, and disrespect the decisions of the people, Dinaradze concluded. According to Dinaradze, the above-mentioned laws will be adopted and enacted in the next 2 or 3 months. He also said that none of them will be adopted under the fast-track procedure and will be subject to consultation. Bidzina Ivanishvili and the bandits of Georgian Dream have sold access to Georgia's port and mineral resources to the Chinese Communist Party, despite offers from the U.S. and the EU, wrote U.S. Congressman Joe Wilson, chairman of the Helsinki Commission, on his X account. And now they are foolishly promoting their dictatorship by expelling 49 opposition MPs and brutally cracking down on demonstrators despite significant attention. Sanctions are coming, wrote Joe Wilson. The checkpoints interviewed Theodore Jonas on the prospects of the Anaklia port project. Jonas himself was on the board of Anaklia Development Consortium, the main contractor. In early 2020. The Georgian government cancelled the $2.5 billion USD contract with Anaklia Development Consortium, alleging it had failed to contract sufficient investments while placing heavy and unrealistic demands on the state to underwrite huge loans from international financial institutions. More in our interview. But on the ground, what do these expectations and what do these statements from the Congressman Joe Wilson also change? For example, can we analyze what is going on with the Anaklia Port project right now on the ground, when the government started talking about finding some new partners, bringing into the project, not rushing the events with the sanctioned Chinese company?
Yes.
I mean,
so there's a couple of things going on here. First of all, Joe Wilson, as a member of the U.S. Congress and as a politician, is making a political argument, particularly to the Trump administration and to Donald Trump. And he's saying, I support you, I'm a MAGA Republican, I'm completely on your team, and I want you guys to understand that this leader in Georgia is acting against U.S. foreign policy interests. Now, that is already absolutely, literally written in black and white in the sanction that has been issued against Bidzina Ivanishvili. And Wilson is going on to make the argument on Iran, because it's a very easy argument to make. When you have Kobakhidze sitting next to, Ismail Haniyeh at the inauguration of the Iranian president, and also some of the things that I think are signals that they've sent in their relationship with Israel, it's pretty easy to say that the government is collaborating with Iran. And of course, collaboration with Iran fits in very closely with collaboration with Russia. at this time.
Can we analyze Anaklia project?
Anaklia, essentially the situation with Anaklia is this. The government has never put into a tender or an investor proposal on Anaklia the conditions that investors want. We, Anaklia Development Consortium, Mamuka and Badri and all these people, because they believe so strongly in the project and they believe that the government of Georgia was willing to work with them on the project, said we're going to forge ahead even though all of the ideal conditions are not in place. Kobakhidze genuinely worked with us and partly, it was Mamuka and Badri's confidence that they would be able to work with Kobakhidze to overcome these structural obstacles with the project. And in fact, they were. But it was when he fired Kobakhidze, when the government changed, when they brought the criminal case, it then was a signal to everybody, to the international financial institutions, to the foreign equity investors, Cerberus, which had looked at investing, was a signal to all of them, the government's not supporting this, the government's not going to work with us.
It's no longer a PPP project.
Exactly, well put. It is no longer a PPP project. The government is not going to step up and do its part to help this thing happen. And when the Georgian government says, oh, but you didn't have a major port company involved with you, or you didn't have a major shipping company, the reason is because no major port company and no major shipping company was willing to touch the project unless the Georgian government put up cash, $250 million in cash, investment in the project, or unless they put up a guarantee, because it was a greenfield project and there was uncertainty about it. And the second issue was Poti, enough of a market to have a deep water port at Poti and one at Anaklia. So
these two factors played a role for the case as well.
In everything. They played a role in all of the difficulties in obtaining equity financing when we were running the project, all the difficulties in obtaining loan financing in the project. And what's amazing about the Anaklia Development Consortium is that we basically overcame all of those obstacles. We lined up the IFI financing. We lined up the equity investment. And the government was then like, oh my God, they actually have managed to do it. So then they stepped forward and they brought the criminal case against Mamuka and they started to badmouth the project. And so, they took the further step to destroy the project because we had actually managed to overcome the market and financing obstacles that were inherent in it. Now, why is that relevant today?
But you lost the arbitration case.
We lost it in the ICC by a 2-1 decision, and the dissenting arbitrator said, how can we possibly excuse the Georgian government in this case when it brings in an investor, encourages the investor, promises that they're going to work with them for this, to work with them closely to make this project work, and then they start doing all of these things to undermine it, including encouraging AP Mahler terminals on the development of a competing port. So the third arbitrator was like, a government cannot bring in a major investor on a concession and then undermine everything they do. It was as simple as that. And the majority said, well, the contract didn't really obligate them to not undermine the project. And of course, the third judge is like, where's your common sense? You can't bring somebody in and then undermine what they do. We still have our case in ICSID, the International Center for Settlement of Investment Disputes, actually the shareholder, Bob Mayer, under the Dutch-Georgia Bilateral Investment Treaty. That case is under different standards. It's under standards that put a much higher obligation on the Georgian government to act in good faith and to not do the sneaky, underhanded things that they did to undermine the project. So frankly, the law in that case is more favorable to us. So even though we did not, unfortunately, win the ICC case, but I would again say it was a very, very close call. Even the majority recognized that the government's conduct towards us was not good.
So you're still discussing this case?
Yes, there is that case.
Going through with
the shareholder case is still pending. I'm not allowed to give details about the schedule, but the case is still moving forward. It is for Bob Mayer's share, so it's not for the same big amount of money because it's only for his investment, not what was the total investment. But I think the case is very strong that under the kind of international law principles that apply to the Dutch-Georgia bilateral investment treaty, that the government's conduct violates the terms of that treaty and that Bob Mayer should win. And I will make the point that, the Georgian government has constantly said, oh, now that, that we won the ICC case, this other case is obviously not going to succeed, and they should drop the case, and they tried to get the case to be dropped, and the arbitral tribunal has disagreed with that and has in fact maintained the case because they understand that the case is under a different body of law, it's a different plaintiff, it involves even different assets. For example, the ICC case was only about Anaklia port. The ICSID case is about both the port and the free the free trade zone. So it has an entirely additional component to it because Mayer was an investor in both. So back to the
picture that we're getting right now around Anaklia is the government is in dispute with the American investor, and it's trying to bring in Chinese investors.
So what happened? So let's talk about the new tender. So the new tender did not address any of these problems that existed before with us. Mm-hmm. The new tender the government is not, it says the government will have a share, 51% share. The government will have a 51% share in the new project, but what's that going to be? Is that going to be like land rights or the railroad or whatever stuff that the investor expects? These investors want to see actually cash or a guarantee about traffic. The new tender does not have that kind of government skin in the game, that sort of government investor. And the second thing is the new tender doesn't do anything to ring fence Poti Port. There's still this remaining uncertainty. Will AP Mahler Terminals do a deep sea port at Poti or not? And as long as there's that uncertainty, the project doesn't look good. So what happened is, in order to show the Georgian public something good after after the introduction of the new Russian law, and they passed the new Russian law. After they passed the new Russian law, that's when they made the announcement, we've awarded the tender to a Chinese company in May, right? In fact, they have never issued the order. They have never issued the order giving the concession to that company. And we, in the arbitration, as well as a lot of Georgian civic organizations, Tina Khidasheli, for example, and her organization, have pushed and said, well, what's going on? What's going on? It's just a matter of public interest. Are you in negotiations with them? Are you going to issue an order? Do you have a draft order? Where is this going? You told us in May that you've given this project to the Chinese. Here it is September, here it is October, here it is November. Where's the project, okay? And
what type of answer did you get?
And so, for a long time, they just kept getting put off. They weren't getting an answer. And then I guess it was probably in the last couple of months, in November or December, the Ministry of Economy, Davitashvili, finally answered and said, quite explicitly in black and white, we're nowhere with the Chinese. They just said that they said, we are still at the point of determining whether the Chinese satisfied the requirements of the tender. Mm-hmm. And we haven't even started negotiations with them.
Yeah, but we know that there was also an issue with the tender itself, right? The tender condition itself, because no state company could be involved in the tender.
What we understand is that I think there were probably three things going on here that destroyed the deal with the Chinese. I think that deal is dead, okay? Or at least it's dead for now. And there were at least three things that were going on with it. One was it violated the tender conditions because it's a state company. And the tender said that the award shall not be given to any company that has more than 20 or 30% state ownership. So they violated their own tender conditions, and that was a problem for them. But whatever, the way they are, they would have probably gotten around that. But secondly, what we heard was the Chinese were demanding, understandably so, the Chinese were demanding a bigger investment from the government and knowing what the investment would be from the government, and they were demanding some kind of certainty about what was going to happen with Poti Port, and the government won't give it. Okay? The third factor might be the fact that the Chinese company is sanctioned. You know, I don't know whether there's still anybody in the Georgian government who's reasonable enough and thoughtful enough to think that way, but in a normal government, they would have said, oh my, this company is sanctioned, and if you had the port, the 49% shareholder of Anaklia being a U.S. and internationally sanctioned company, it was going to destroy the business model of the port. There would have no Western shipping could have gone through there. It would have greatly reduced the amount of the countries and the flagships that they could do business with. So it was a disaster, and I guess now they're talking about, so that's why they're talking about now they have to bring in another investor.
What type of other investors might be interested in Anaklia? Because of course no Western investments, I mean, I don't know who might be expecting Western investments in this project or in any big project at this point.
The only, you know, I don't think they could even get, like, you know, let's say a sanctioned Russian oligarch or somebody who doesn't care about the U.S. reaction or losing, because they're essentially, they're already under sanctions and things like that. They have to be willing to literally throw away their money. I mean, because unless and until the Georgian government gives certainty on these two major issues, which is the amount and nature of the Georgian government's investment in the project and the question about Poti Port, until they give certainty on that nobody is going to invest in this project, even, you know, somebody who, I mean, there's no question about Western investors right now because of the whole political context, the sanctions and everything else. So everybody is running away from Georgia right now. They're all hands off. So I don't see any prospect of them being able to do this project anytime soon.
What was new in business this week? On to Natia Taktakishvili. Tbilisi Hills, located in the village of Telet in Zanisi district, has started creating the sports and wellness complex. The construction of Georgia's largest sports and wellness complex is already underway. This facility will include open and indoor swimming pools, tennis and pickleball courts, a spa restaurant, yoga studio, a business lounge, and various spaces for work and relaxation. It will offer residents and visitors a unique and unmatched wellness experience. Next to the golf course, the first ever golfers clubhouse in Georgia is being built, designed as a hub for professionals and amateur golfers from around the world. The new sports and wellness complex will be opened in late 2024 in Tbilisi Hills. Tbilisi Hills is one of the largest and most ambitious residential complexes in Georgia, located near to Tbilisi center, just a 20 minutes drive from Freedom Square. The complex offers a variety of real estate options, including apartments, exclusive land plots, and fully finished private villas. Tbilisi Hills is spanning 331 hectares. Only 10% of the area is dedicated to development, while the rest is reserved for lush greenery, parks, and pristine nature. The average occupancy rate at 220-room Paragraph Tbilisi, a luxury collection brand hotel, was within 20 or 30% in January. Irina Deishvili, head of marketing and communications, spoke to BMDG about the hotel's operations. According to her, the hotel had more guests in December 2024 than in the same period last year, as Paragraph Tbilisi had been open for 1 month by then. Compared to the last year, we have a positive change in terms of occupancy. However, 1 year of operation is not much for a hotel, as it needs a little more time to gain trust and have more visitors. But compared to the last year, the number of our visitors has definitely doubled. We don't have high occupancy. The average occupancy of the hotel is within 20 or 30%. We have a different picture every day, said Irina Deishvili, adding that the range of visitors is very diversified. We have guests from neighboring countries, Israel, Europe, America, Arab countries. what is new for us is that we also have local vacationers in Irina Adeishvili told BMWG. According to the prices published on the luxury collections website, the cost of a night at Paragon Tbilisi starts from $285 USD and increases to $900 USD depending on the room type. The hotel includes 220 rooms, 5 restaurants, a top-class spa on 3 floors, and high-tech meeting and conference spaces. Abu Dhabi developer Eagle Hills has announced plans to invest more than $5.7 billion USD into projects in Georgia. It signed an agreement with the Georgian government to develop waterside projects in Tbilisi and Batumi. Ktanisi Park in Tbilisi will be a riverside mixed-use project of residencies and retail spaces that will span 590 hectares. In Batumi, Eagle Hills is planning Gonio Marina, a 260-hectare beachfront and marina development that includes branded residencies, hotels, retail parks, and park spaces. According to the company, Eagle Hills, Georgia holds huge promise and potential. The agreement was signed in Abu Dhabi during a visit by Georgia's Prime Minister Kobakhidze. Eagle Hills has multi-billion-dollar projects in the Middle East, Europe, Asia, and Africa. Anaklia Kokaya, CEO of In Group, declares that despite the events taking place in the country, the hotel is loaded with 60%. He spoke to BMWG about this and predicted an increase in occupancy rate for summer. According to him, at the moment, corporate bookings have decreased, but individual bookings are up. It's difficult to make forecasts for the year because Korean is mainly demand among the Georgian customers. Corporate bookings have decreased while individual bookings are up. In Gori, we are loaded with 60% this month. We hope that the occupancy rate will increase in summer, Kokaya said. In addition, according to Kokaya, the festive space circus near the Gori Inn, launched in 2023, is planning to reorganize this year. As Anaklia Kokaya said, the events taking place in the country have affected the restaurant sector the most. Therefore, if the situation does not change, in order to save resources, it's planned to reduce the working hours of the restaurant space. However, this restriction will not apply corporate bookings. Gori Inn is a chain of hotels managed by In Group. More than 20 million lari was invested in the construction of the hotel. The investment has been made includes a total of 120 rooms. As for the circus, it was launched in 2023. The space covers 600 square meters and is designed for 500 persons. KFC Georgia continues to expand its restaurant chain and company has opened its 12th facility in the country. A new KFC restaurant will host guests at Gdani Plaza located in Vekua Street 14. KFC is an American fast food restaurant chain which is famous for its legendary secret recipe of cooking chicken. It was founded in 1930 in the USA and in a short period of time was able to make a name out not only in America but all over the world. KFC restaurant chain in Georgia has been operating since 2014 and the company continues to expand and create additional jobs every year. The restaurant is located in Gdani Plaza and can accommodate up to 150 guests and it's also adapted to the needs of young children. KFC restaurants fully comply with European and international standards. Gudauri Inn expanded and a high-class building was added to the tourist facility. Anaklia Kokaya, the executive director of In Group, spoke about this with BMWG. According to him, 30 additional high-class rooms, a spa center, jacuzzi and swimming pool have been added to tourist facility. The company invested over 4 million lari in the project. The expansion of Gudauri Inn has been completed. We have added a new 5-star building which includes 30 rooms. The area of room is approximately 45 square meters and the cost of accommodation includes breakfast ranges from 140 USD to 200 USD per night. In addition, the building includes a spa center, jacuzzi, a swimming pool. We have not yet calculated the final investment, although the implementation of this new project costs over 4 million lari, says the executive director of In Group. According to him, at this stage, the hotel is 100% occupied. However, Kobakhidze adds that European flows have decreased. At the same time, tourists are becoming more active, mainly from Israel, Asia, and Arab countries. However, as the notes, the occupancy rate in February will be up to 80%, which is a slight decrease compared to the same period last year. Natia Goletiani, the manager of Alpine Lounge Hotel and Restaurant in Kazbeki, declares that the hotel load was down by 10% in 2024. According to her reduced flows, we also observed this year, which was reflected in advance bookings as well. This year, hotel load is within 30%. We are visited by tourists from Asia, including Korea and China, as well as Russia. Earlier, tourists used to book hotels 3 or 4 months in advance, but now the trend changed and bookings began only 2 weeks earlier. The manager said the hotel management is pinning its hopes on the resumption of tourism in 2025, especially upon the completion of the road, as the facility is located close to Kobakhidze cable car, and accordingly their goal is to be loaded not only for summer but also for the winter season. Miranda Wawadze, general manager of Kopala Hotel, noted in an interview with NBG that the hotel's load has decreased to bookings are being cancelled. The occupancy has decreased significantly. In percentage terms, our hotel is loaded with 20%. Tourists from Israel were supposed to come, but they cancelled. Cancellations are frequent. A lot of reservations were cancelled even for the new year. In general, there is already low activity in late January and February, which is considered as a bad season for Tbilisi. Miranda Qawadze told BMDG, according to her, the hotel had to decrease the prices due to the reduced demand, although, as Qawadze noted, even this did not have any effect in the current situation. The winter months are active for Tbilisi hotels in terms of business tourists. As a result, the demand for conference halls is growing and they need to be booked several months in advance. As the general manager of Kopala noted, there is no activity in this direction. Conference spaces are completely free and no reservations are coming in. Guests are refraining from visiting the restaurant space either. Miranda Qawadze notes that advance reservations for the spring season have already started, although groups that plan to come to Georgia are refraining from making the final approval. GD Parliament approved 4 new members of the National Bank Board. The decision was made unanimously by the plenary session without discussion. GD President Mikhail Kobakhidze presented 4 candidates for NBG Board membership to the Parliament on February 3. Vakhtang Burgiashvili is an economist by profession. He graduated from the University of Nancy, France. There he also received a master's degree in finance and audit. Vakhtang Burgiashvili is the current executive director of the National Bank. He's a donor to the Georgian Dream. In addition, he was an analyst for Bidina Ivanishvili Society 2030. Vakhtang Burgiashvili donated 50,000 lari to the Georgian Dream in 2016. According to the business registry, Vakhtang Burgiashvili is also a former businessman. According to the public registry, at the time of his election to the position in 2018, he owned Tiflis Development Consortium. He was also shareholder in LLCs, Saki Petroleum, Miu Plus and IS Group. At the moment, no companies are found in his name. Otar Shamugia, Ivan Javakhishvili's Tbilisi State University, Suhumi Branch, Georgia, economist equivalent to a master's degree. Otar Shamugia, during the Georgian Dream government, was first the deputy minister of agriculture and then the minister since 2007. He has worked in various positions at the Ministry of Agriculture. According to his CV, he speaks only Georgian and Russian. Before joining the Ministry of Agriculture, he was the financial director of Real Consulting, and also between 2005 and 2006, the financial director of Consulting Group LLC. In 2005, head of the Property Management Service, Georgian Railways LLC. From 1999 to 2004, head of Central Accounting, chief accountant, State Department of Land Management of Georgia. From 1998 to 1999, Chief Specialist, State Department of Land Management of Georgia. Levan Zneladze, Faculty of Macroeconomics, Javakhishvili Tbilisi State University. He has completed postgraduate studies and has an associate degree. He also received his degree from Javakhishvili University. According to his resume, Levan Zneladze's public service began in 1995 as the head of the staff of the Finance and Budget Committee of the Parliament. After that, he held the position of First Deputy Minister of Finance until 2000. In 2001, he was the first Deputy State Minister for Economic Affairs. In 2002, he briefly became the Minister of Taxes and Revenues. After that, he was the General Director of Imedi Holding between 2002 and 2006. From 2006 to 2009, he was the Director of GMC Group. After that, he was the Deputy General Director and Financial Director of Bidina Ivanishvili's Cartu between 2009 and 2011. In 2011, he returned to public service and became the Deputy Director of the National Museum until 2015. From 2015 to 2020, General Director of the Service Agency of the Ministry of Finance. From 2020 to the present, head of the Cash Operations and Cash Circulation Department of the National Bank. Nino Geladze has three different specialties. All three were received from Tbilisi State University. She's an economist, lawyer, and foreign language specialist. In 2003 to 2021, she held various positions at ProCredit Bank and ProCredit Holding. Most recently, she was a representative of ProCredit Bank, head of the Compliance and AML Subdepartment in 2017 to 2021. In 2021 to 2023, she had a private practice as a consultant in the areas of combating money laundering and operational risk management. Since 2024, she has been an active employee of the National Bank, specifically the head of the Supervisory Policy Department. And that's all for today. I will be leaving you off today with the news in the economy this week, and see you on Sunday.
In January 2025, consumer price index increased by 0.4% compared to the previous month, while the annual inflation rate amounted to 2%. With regard to the annual core inflation, the price increased by 2.1%, while the annual core inflation without tobacco amounted 2%, according to the National Statistics Office of Georgia. As of the document, the annual inflation rate was mainly influenced by price changes for the following groups: food and non-alcoholic beverages. The price in the group increased by 3%, contributing 1 percentage point to the overall annual inflation rate. With the group, the prices increased for the following subgroups: vegetables, coffee, tea and cocoa, oils and fats, mineral water, soft drinks, fruit and vegetable juices, sugar, jam, honey, chocolate and confectionery, fish. At the same time, the price decreased for the following groups: fruit and grapes, milk, cheese and eggs. Alcoholic beverages and tobacco, the price increased by 6.2%. Miscellaneous goods and services, the price for the group increased by 6.9%, contributing 0.35 percentage points to the overall index. Health, the price increased by 3.8%, contributing 0.34 percentage points to the overall index. Communication, the price decreased by 12.5%. Transport, the price for the group decreased by 1%, contributing minus 0.12 percentage points to the overall index. Georgian Dreams President Mikhail Qavelashvili stated during his annual address to the parliament that the unity of state and people, the government's prudent policy alongside saving the country, made it possible for the economy to grow by an average of 10% over the last 3 years. The president also stressed that the country's economic growth continues successfully. This would not be possible without ensuring peace and stability. The unity of state and people, the government's prudent policy alongside saving the country, made it possible for our economy to grow by an average of 10% over the last 3 years and 4 strategic objects to be implemented. As a result of all these, the country's budget has increased, along with tourist revenues, public service servants, pensions and funding for almost all important sectors. It's significant that we achieved all this against the backdrop of ongoing wars, crises and economic problems in the country. Our country's economy growth continues successfully. We hold leading position in this direction. Numerous important infrastructure projects aimed at strengthening our country are being implemented, the President of Georgia stated. The registration of the joint venture Green Energy Corridor Power Company has been successfully completed in Bucharest, Romania, as reported by Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development. This company, formed by the transmission system operators of Georgia, Azerbaijan, Romania and Hungary, will focus on research and design for the Green Energy Corridor object, which involves constructing a high-voltage submarine transmission cable in the Black Sea. The Black Sea submarine cable project is the largest infrastructure initiative directly connecting the power systems of Georgia and Romania, and more broadly linking the South Caucasus with southeastern Europe. The submarine cable will span over 1,155 kilometers and have a capacity of 1,300 megawatts. The project will also include a fiber optic telecommunications cable along the same corridor, with completion expected by 2030. This project enhances national and regional energy security, strengthens Black Sea connectivity, diversifies energy sources, boosts renewable energy production and integration. It also promotes competitively priced electricity generation for renewable sources. An additional 200 electric vehicles chargers will be installed throughout the city, announced Tbilisi Mayor Kobakhidze during a municipal government meeting. Mayor Kobakhidze confirmed that the auction for this initiative has been successfully completed, with the winning companies now selected. The winning companies are committed to installing smart devices at each location at their own expense within 8 months of signing the contract, and will ensure uninterrupted operation for the next 10 years, he stated. According to Tbilisi Mayor, the installation of electric vehicle chargers is a key component of the city's transportation policy aimed at enhancing the ecological landscape of the capital. We are placing significant emphasis on improving the ecological situation in Tbilisi. We are implementing projects for recreational spaces, enforcing regulations on construction sites and taking many other steps in this direction, he noted. Acar Energy, a subsidiary of Turkish-based Exim Holding, will invest $460 million in partnership with the Georgian government to construct 5 wind and 1 solar power plant in the country, GD government administration said on Tuesday. The project aims to achieve a total installed capacity of about 360 megawatts, contributing to a strengthening of domestic sector and enhancing the country's position in the competitive renewable energy market, the government administration said. The body noted a company representative had emphasized a considerable investment potential in Georgia, underscoring supportive policies directed towards foreign investors by the government. The administration said the investment was set to commence this year and would be implemented in phases. Acar Energy has completed 2 hydroelectric power projects in the country with total investment exceeding $200 million. Electricity consumption in Georgia returned to an upward trend in 2024. Following the previous year's low base, total domestic consumption grew by 6% year-on-year to 13.8 terawatt-hour, but remained 2.3% below the record high level of 2022, according to the report published by Galton Taggart. This growth was driven by increased consumption of direct consumers and retail consumption, offsetting Abkhazia region's decreased consumption. Direct consumer sharp growth is attributed to a revival of crypto mining and metallurgy sectors, fueled by rising product prices. However, ferroalloy operations via started in October 24 with no timeline for their resumption. Notably, electricity consumption forecast of 2025 foresees increase in electricity consumption levels of these entities from Q2 2025. Retail consumption in 2024 increased for both Telmico and EP Georgia subscribers. In the retail segment, household consumption increased by 7.5%. As for commercial consumption, it also rose by 7.5% year-on-year.
The Checkpoints is presented by pharmaceutical company GM Pharma.